Morning, everybody. How you doing today? On this episode of the show, we're going to talk about perfectionism. Now, despite my best or strongest urges, I didn't re-record this 1,000 times because perfectionism generally is kind of a bad thing. Now, like you've grown used to, we are going to talk about something that seems really, really out there, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that I bring that topic back to something directly related around security and privacy. Now, the reason why perfectionism was on my mind today was because we're in the midst of Google Next 2019. Now, this is Google's big cloud event focusing on their Google Cloud platform. So all the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service offerings, and they end up talking a little bit about G Suite as well, which is technically part of the Google Cloud. But there's a lot of new interesting announcements and a lot of cool demos and a lot of great technology to get excited about. And one of the things that happened was there was a new announcement called Google Cloud Run. And essentially what this does is allows you to take a container that, as long as it has a web server responding in that container, you could drop it into your architecture and basically run it similar to a serverless function as a service offering. Now, that's great. It's good. It's a cool solution. There's a lot of great things about it. But the way it was positioned, a lot of people started to think, well, wait a minute, this is a replacement for things like Google Cloud Functions or AWS Lambda or Microsoft Azure Functions. Now, if you're not familiar with those, you can look at the serverless video from earlier this week when we talk about the definition of serverless. But the argument came up really, really quickly and seemed to be a either or. Now, a few folks, myself, Ben Kehoe, Kelsey Hightower, we're talking about this within context and sort of our understanding as seasoned technologists, where it would fit and where it wouldn't fit, the realities versus the marketing pitch or the spin on the service. Always a great productive discussion. I'll link to that down below as well. But some of the other sentiments that I saw on Twitter were really around, an either or. One thing has to be better or perfect for all solutions, and that's very much not at all what technology's about. This sort of game that everybody is playing, whether you realize it or not, and those that realize it are far better at it, is that you're trying to find a group of solutions, so a set of tools that can help you solve problems, while having that tool set as small as possible. You're never going to find one tool set that does everything. On the flip side, there was an example in last night's developer keynote where a customer was on stage talking about how they had enabled developer freedom and that they had developers running anything and everything you could think of under the sun. Now, that's going too far because you've got way too many tools. So you need some narrowish definition. So right now I'm recording this on my Canon EOS M50. Great mirrorless camera, really like it when it was announced. Jumped on it, grabbed a whole bunch of lenses for it, made a good investment in the system, even though I had a great Lumix camera that I was using for recording videos and stuff. This one gives me that ability with the lenses to do a cool blurred background natively in the camera, and it's a just smaller, a little sharper, more up to speed system. Great for shooting HD stuff, but what it doesn't do is streaming. Now, right now, I've connected this as a webcam. I found a way to do it, but I spent a good week and a half over the last 2 weeks trying to figure out where the better camera would be. What would be the ultimate camera, which is ridiculous. I just invested in this system, and it meets 95 to 98% of my needs. There's just this one little niche if I needed to use it as a webcam that would be really frustrating because it doesn't have clean HDMI out, and it didn't have software natively to actually connect it via USB to use it as a webcam. But I spent all this time trying to find the perfect camera, when realistically that would have been a foolish decision to drop another $2,000 or $3,000 on a camera that just solves that last 3 or 4% while raising its own other issues, where this is a phenomenal camera. I'm really enjoying it. So we get this perspective. So we've talked about people looking at new services and saying, well, it doesn't solve all of my problems, or this could solve all of my problems. My diving into the camera, how does this tie back to security and privacy? Well, it's really simple. People look for the perfect security solution. They always look to say, oh, we need to remove all possible risks. That's ridiculous. You cannot remove all possible risks. Security is about balance. It's about finding the appropriate balance for the situation and the context that a business is running. Yet I see time and time again, especially with folks who are new into security, or folks who don't necessarily have a really broad set of security knowledge, they're looking to remove any and all lists and risk. And I talk to security teams who are going crazy because they're like, oh, the business is ignoring us. They're not removing this risk. They're not mitigating this. They're not doing that. They're not doing this. They're leaving us exposed. And it goes, yeah, that's part of the business's job, is to make those trade-offs, because trying to find perfect security means you're not going to do your job, which is finding a balance between security and the risk that the company and the organization is comfortable in taking. It's about informing people and finding that right balance, making sure that you're taking implicit risks and pushing them into explicit decisions. And that can be okay if somebody decides to accept that risk, as long as they understand the risk that they're taking. So that was what was bubbling up in my head around perfectionism. There's no one solution to rule them all when it comes to technology. There is always going to be a mess. The idea is to try to reduce that mess to the smallest manageable piece of that. So you won't have one tool, but you could get 2 or 3, as opposed to having 20 or 30. And the same goes for security. You're never going to hit perfect security. You need to hit reasonable security that's identified and has explicit acceptance of risks, as opposed to getting hit from the side, not understanding it. Let me know what you think. Hit me up online at marknca in the comments down below, and as always by email, me at markn.ca. I look forward to talking to you online, and I'll see you on the next show.